Welcome back to ARC Tutorials. This is Testing Concept Series, and in today's episode we are going to learn about ad hoc testing. What is ad hoc testing? What are some of the tools that are used? What are the advantages and what are the disadvantages? We are going to cover this topic in detail. This is part 25 of the series. If you haven't checked out the previous parts, make sure that you go through them so that you get the complete understanding of all the testing concepts that I'm covering in this particular series. We are at episode number 25 and we are covering ad hoc testing. So what is ad hoc testing? Ad hoc testing is a type of software testing that is performed without any formal planning or documentation or a process. It's done typically in a spontaneous manner, right? So also called as mad testing, right? Madness. There is no method to madness here. We as a QA, as a someone who is performing this particular test, we go about using the application just like any normal user would do, and we would do all types of things. We don't have to follow a particular path or a happy path or a negative path, nothing. We just interact with the system just like any other user does. Now this is very extremely useful in identifying defects, because when you start using the system ad hocly in a random fashion without any test data, just using for any negative or happy path together in a repeated scenarios, you're bound to find lot of defects which otherwise would have missed out in either functional or regression or system testing. This is very helpful, and I have seen in past in enterprises that this is something that is done after every quick patching is done or certain user stories are released. Quick basis, they do some ad hoc testing and make sure that the basic things are all in place. There are no ziggy zaggy things going on. Now, why is it important? Extremely important. It identifies defects which can be caught even before you actually start a formal round of testing. So there are no clear goals or objectives in mind. So you go ahead open-minded, you start exploring the system and test its limits. You start clicking everywhere, you do some repetitive work in the system and see how it behaves and much, and so on the similar lines. Ad hoc testing is not to replace any other type of testing, but it's a complement, which means that it adds up and supplements to other types of testing that we perform, like smoke testing, functional testing, regression testing, etc. Ad hoc testing is done in a quick time bound fashion, and that's why it identifies any potential defects that are there even before you start a full-fledged testing or the system. Flexibility, because there are no predefined test cases or test plan or a test data that you go with. You enter all junk data, you can enter any data and see how the system reacts, behaves, interacts, and that's exactly what is the importance of ad hoc testing. What are some of the tools that are used? Now, there are no, since this is done manual, ad hoc way, there is no formal process or test plan or test data as such. You just go about using the regular tools that we use, like a bug tracking software to log the defects, like a Jira or a ClickUp or a etc. Right, version 1, etc. We can also use specialized test management softwares. If your company is using one, you go ahead, you log each of the defect, you can record them, etc., organize them in certain features, etc. Load testing tools can be also be used. Network monitoring tools are also used to simulate the load testing, etc. Performance testing tools can also be used as part of ad hoc. Some teams really use that to see how much load a certain containers or a machine, VM machines can take, etc. What are the advantages? We talked a bit about the advantages already. It helps in identifying defects, tests the system limits, complements with other type of testing, improves overall quality, allows for flexibility, and this can be done in really quick, right? Mostly it's a time bound activity, like we'll say that take couple of hours and do an ad hoc testing and make sure everything is, if you see anything crazy going on in the system. So those are some of the main advantages, and that also really helps in the QA team to go unleash their experience in exploiting and exploring the system to identify any potential defects. Now, what are some of the disadvantages? Now, lack of repeatability. That means that since there are no predefined test cases, you sometimes will not be able to reproduce an issue that you found. You find an issue, but you don't know how to reproduce it because there was no formal steps involved there. So that is one of the major drawbacks of AdHoc testing. Lack of coverage. There is certainly no measure of how much the system has been covered in terms of tests, right? You might have missed on certain features, certain functionality because you did not click on a certain thing or you did not enter certain details, etc. So lack of coverage is a disadvantage of AdHoc testing. Then you have lack of documentation. Since AdHoc testing are done in an ad hoc way, there is no formal documentation except um, the bugs are logged, but we don't know how to reproduce them or how to go about simulating that defect again. Lack of focus. Since you don't have any objectives or goals that to cover, there are no certain target areas in the application that you will cover, so that can lead to lack of focus in the testing the system. Risk of false positives, like for example, we will see that a lot of some defects have come up, but maybe junk data, maybe an edge case, can be frustrating in terms of resulting into the false positives. So some of those are some of the disadvantages of AdHoc testing. All right, so that's all you should know about AdHoc testing as a testing concept. I hope you have learned all about AdHoc testing and now you are aware of that concept. Thank you so much for joining in this episode. I'll see you in the next episode. We will learn about visual testing, yet another very important concept from QA point of view. If you like my work and tutorials, please do consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/rtutorials. Thank you so much in advance. See you in the next episode. Thank you.